Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. Gonna have a shorter show, most likely, than we've been doing, because when I was doing it once a week, obviously took a lot longer to get through everything. And then yesterday, the first in a couple of days, we went almost an hour. Be a little shorter today, probably a lot shorter today, actually, but still gonna give you the best show that we can. So let's jump right in. MLB standings, gonna do that pretty much every day now. With we're in the final 2 months of the season. Just under the last 2 months of the season. American League East, the Baltimore Orioles lead Tampa by 2 games. Toronto is 7 back, and then you have the Yankees and the Red Sox running out that division. Division is very, very tough. The Boston Red Sox are 3 games over 500, and they're in last place. They would only be like a game or 2 out of the American League Central. They're 12 games out of the American League East. That's crazy. American League Central, Minnesota leads Cleveland by 4.5 games in that division. They're at 16-55, and you have Detroit, the White Sox, and the Royals rounding out that division. American League West, Texas Rangers have won 8 games in a row. Max Scherzer's last start pitched well last night. 8 in a row for Texas. They're now 3 games ahead of Houston. Seattle has won 6 in a row themselves. They're 6.5 back in that division. They're hanging in there. National League East, Atlanta leads Philly by 10.5 games. By far the biggest division leader of any division leader right now. They're 71-40, which is the best record in all of baseball. Royals aren't too far behind them with the best record in the American League at 70-43. But Atlanta continues to roll. Got the Phillies, who are having a pretty good year. They're a good chance to go to the playoff, but they're 10.5 games out of first. And you have Miami, and then the Mets and the Nationals. Mets are only a game and a half out of Nationals right now. Tells you how bad the Mets are. And the Nationals are playing pretty good baseball, actually. National League Central's really tight. Milwaukee Brewers are 61-54 in first place. Cubs and the Reds are both a game and a half out. Cubs are 17-8 since the All-Star break. They are the best record in the National League since the All-Star break with 17-8. The Reds have been slumping a little bit, but still right there. I believe they might be the last team in the National League right now. We're going to go with the wildcard standings in a minute. You got the Pirates and the Cardinals rounding out that division. National League West, the Dodgers are in first. They lead the San Francisco Giants by 5 games. Arizona is really struggling. They've lost 7 in a row. They have not won a game from the trade deadline. They've fallen back to 500. Got San Diego, who's hanging in there, but 55-59, lost the last 3. And then the Rockies round out that division. In the wild card in the American League, Tampa's the first wild card. They got a 5-game lead. Got Houston's the second wild card. They got a game and a half lead for the second spot. And then you got Toronto is the last team in right now. Seattle is only 2 games out. They're hot. They've won 6 in a row. They've been one of the league's best teams, so probably over the last 5 weeks or so. Had a phenomenal July and continued to play well in August. So 61-52 on 6 in a row. They're 2 games behind Toronto for the last playoff spot. 3.5 games behind Houston for the second wild card spot in the American League. Last year had, I think, 93 wins. It was their first playoff berth since 2001. They took 2 out of 3. They sweep Toronto and they win 2-0 in the wild card round last year for falling to Houston in 3 games in the division series. A lot of people thought, all right, they should be very good again. We'll probably once again be in second place in American League West and make the playoffs as a wild card. For most of the first half of the season, they were very mediocre and a bit disappointing. They even did, like I said, did a mini sell-off at the deadline. Trade their closer Postal to Arizona. They do get a return for him. They trade A.J. Pollock and Mark Maffey as 2 bench players to San Francisco. They continue to play well. They're starting to finally play like we all thought they would. Yankees 4.5 out. They win last night against the White Sox. Now tonight, Luis Severino and his 7.74 ERA goes on the hill against the White Sox. They lose here to the White Sox. That's a bad luck, but 4.5 games out right now. Boston's at 5 games out. They've lost 8 of their last 10, so they were playing really well for a while, but then now they're struggling. Of course, last week when they, Alex Verdugo showed up late. Apparently, it was not the first time it happened. He got benched. It was a late scratch. And then they blow that game. They had the bases loaded and one out. They were down 5. They're going into the 9th. and they get one back, and the base load and one out on a fly out. They forgot how many outs there were, and they don't apply to lose a game against Toronto 5-4. We say it was like the lowest point he's been in as a manager, and this is his 5th season with the Red Sox. They're struggling, and the Angels finally won a game for the first time since the All-Star break. But they are only problem is they've played themselves almost out of contention. They're 7 games out or a game under 500. So that's what those teams that are in contention there. In the National League, Philadelphia and San Francisco are tied for the first 2 wildcard spots. They're both 3-game lead for the first spot. The Cubs and Reds are tied for the last spot right now. Cubs technically have a slightly higher win percentage than the Reds. They have 1 less win, but 1 less loss. Both are tied though. And then you got Miami is a half game out. Arizona was lost 7 in a row. They're 2 games out. San Diego's hanging in there, 4 games out. And then the rest of the really bad teams. So only other baseball news I have is the Rays All-Star starting pitcher Shane McClanahan has a forearm injury. He's expected to miss the rest of the season, may have surgery. Tough loss for the Rays. He's had a phenomenal year. He's 11-2 or 11-3 this year. He's got a 3.1 or 3.2 ERA. He's been a Cy Young candidate pretty much all year. Now he's probably out for the season. It's a big loss for the Rays, who, ever since the hot start, really haven't been as great this year, and obviously are now not in first place anymore. Should easily make the playoffs as the first wild card, but early on in the year, back in May, we thought they could be a World Series contender. Now they're in danger of possibly losing in the first round. On to NBA. The Knicks extend Josh Hart 4 years, $81 million. I was very happy with this deal. He's a perfect fit for the Knicks. He just fits what they do so well. Played phenomenal for the Knicks. They got him the trade line for the New Orleans Pelicans. Knicks think we're 21-10 once they got him, which was one of the best records in the NBA. Winning a playoff series, which I didn't expect. And they're phenomenal. With him, and so I'm very happy they got that done. He exercised his player option. The whole plan, I knew he would either decline it just to sign a longer deal, or he would exercise and then just so they had him, and then they'd work on it from there. That's the route they took. So I'm very happy that he's locked up now. So I mentioned yesterday the ACC is looking to possibly add Stanford and Cal from Pac-12, or this point the Pac-4. Their conference has been depleted. They're interested in adding SMU, so they might try to add SMU as well. SMU forced for a year. Ever since the death penalty from the recruiting violations, they've been non-existent. I think 2 years ago or so, they had a better year when they had Sonny Dykes, but then TCU stole them away. They weren't as good last year, but they could be joining the ACC. NFL news. Kareem Hunt, I mentioned he has signed with the Saints, but a report came out literally right after I got off the air. As soon as I got off the air, I heard about it. I was like, dang it. Wish I'd stay on the air a couple more minutes. I could have broken to you guys, but the report is Hunt actually has not signed with the Saints. The deal isn't done. The Colts last minute called him, and he's going in for a visit. They're getting desperate. Jonathan Taylor, they don't want to trade him, but they want to extend him, and he wants a deal. Got a very messy situation there. I think their backup, Zach Moss, might be hurt as well. So they're really lacking a running back. They need a good run game. If they're probably going to start rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson this year. So now they're trying to steal him away from the Saints, Kareem Hunt. Hunt, he's a little older for a back. Not going to lead the league in rushing like he did a few years back in Kansas City. But, like last year, he only averaged 3.8 yards of carries, number 2 back in the Chubb in Cleveland. But I think he's also at 35 catches last year. So I think he's still a good change of pace pass catching back. Apparently, Commanders offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy has been overly intense at Commanders training camp. Supposedly some a few players brought it up to Commanders head coach Ron Rivera about that he's like really, really intense. Versus he talked to Bieniemy about it. He said he probably says he does not expect him to tone down. And Bieniemy said, "I'm always going to be loud and demand from my leaders." To me, for the most part, most players feel like don't like training camp. It's hot. It's 100 degrees. They're working hard, all this gear on. They're sweating their ass off. Coaches are yelling at them. It's not fun for everybody. Players, I'm sure, when they get back to the locker room or to the dorms or wherever they stay during training camp, I assume a lot of them complain. Coach so-and-so was, driving me nuts today. Oh my God, it's 100 degrees. I'm trying my best to get in shape, and he's yelling at me. Oh, this is rough. So the reason that I was honestly surprised this even came out. It's something that I would think would stay behind closed doors. I was watching Get Up on ESPN this morning, and Dominique Foxworth, he was an ex-player, played for the Ravens at one point. He says he was there when John Harbaugh took over. When Harbaugh first took over, he was like a tougher guy. He was very strict. He came from he coached under Andy Reid, who's a no nonsense guy in Philadelphia. I think he was a special teams coach there or something, or a defensive assistant or something. And he got the Ravens job, and guys didn't love it. He wasn't that well liked, but a few years in, he kind of became more laid back. When you bring in a new coach, a lot of times, when you bring in a new coach to a team that hasn't been good in a while, they might, and they're a new young up and coming coach that has supposed to prove themselves. They a lot of times will try and to be a little over strict, in their first year or so, to try and tell guys, hey, you guys can't just coach ball like you did last year and went 5-12. You guys got to show up this year if you want to be good. And it's not like Sean Payton, although he's obviously not a rookie. He's been a head coach for a very long time in this league. Of course, he didn't coach last year, but for years, 10 plus years was in New Orleans, almost 15 years was in New Orleans. He won a Super Bowl there. Is like, he's being very strict because he has one guy's doing this and that. Because, he saw how bad it was in Denver last year. He was basically trying to do, he's literally trying to do anything that happened last year with under that whole thing with the fan of hockey. He's doing literally the complete opposite. So maybe, Eric Bieniemy goes to a Commanders franchise that, he's not the coordinator, he's not a head coach, he's not the coordinator, but he's a guy. He's trying to get a head coach job, has for 4 or 5 years, hasn't been able to get one. He's probably getting frustrated. And, he knows he's trying to think what else will I have to do. So, he leaves. Maybe it's like, maybe because they're like, you're on an offense led by Pat Mahomes. You also got Travis Kelce, Andy Reid's there. Now he goes to Washington, that team that has struggled offensively the last few years. You got a quarterback with only a 5th-round pick, for only one career starting spell. There's your starting quarterback. You got Ron Rivera, who's a defensive guy. He's on the hot seat a little bit. Personally, I think if Washington missed the playoffs, Ron Rivera would get fired, and that's what I honestly expect to happen, but you never know. Maybe if he can, help develop Sam Howell and Washington improves on offense and make the playoffs, maybe people realize, all right, this guy could be a good head coach after all, and someone will go give him a job. So maybe it's that, and he's a very loud guy, and I think part of that, the only negative I have is I didn't really mind it at all. Like, this isn't Little League, this isn't Pee Wee football, this isn't high school football, this is the National Football League, the highest level of athletics for a football player that you can get. Like, you got to be all in or all out. This is part of the deal. I think part of the reason he hasn't gotten a head coach job is because, he's very demanding. He is. And, he's very loud, and I think he's very intense. This is training camp. This isn't the regular season. This isn't even preseason. This is in training camp, in practice. Practice before the preseason, before the preseason even starts. In practice, he's already appears to be in midseason mode. Some guys at work, I think some guys realize, he's just trying to get the best out of us, just trying to prepare us for the season. This is what we signed up for. Everyone hates training camp. It's hot. guys are still getting warmed up because they had a long off season. So guys are going to make mistakes. Coaches are going to get on you for it. This is what it is. He's got to deal with it. But I think some guys don't love it. Some guys, the league is a little younger than it once was. Yeah, everyone's a little more sensitive than they once were. So I think his style of coaching, this very loud, demanding style, it works for certain guys, but doesn't work with other guys. And I think the best head coaches realize that. And even if they're a loud, demanding guy, they know they do a good job of getting to know their players. And they realize, okay, I'm a loud, demanding guy, but these dudes don't really respond to that. I gotta tone it back a little bit when I coach up these guys. I think Deanime, just being the kind of guy he is, the way he was raised and the way he is, he's a loud dude. He's an intense guy, and he's demanding. That's how he is. And I think some guys are working, some guys it kind of clashes, and I think some GMs looking for when they interview him, all right, as an offensive coordinator, I'd love you. He's probably the best. He might be the best offensive coordinator in the league. I don't think that's far fetched at all. Just managing an offense that might work, but now he's got to manage a whole team. I think a lot of teams have doubts he can do that, and I kind of see it at this point. He's in for so many jobs. Something's definitely wrong. And last thing before we move on from NFL, and we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon. We've got a couple more announcements. Former Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. He was a first-round pick, I believe, in 2000 and maybe 20. It was a star Alabama, game-changing speed coming out. And in his second year in the league, I think it was 2 years ago, early on in the second NFL season, he was arrested for a felony DUI. He was driving 150 miles an hour. His BAC, his blood alcohol content, was twice the legal limit, and he actually struck a woman, and she unfortunately passed away from the incident. It's very sad and horrible incident, and this just shows you, this message to everybody, but especially you youngsters out there, because this is what most commonly happens. If you're a little buzzed, call an Uber, get a ride with somebody else. Only bad things can happen. And this is a perfect example why. And now this guy had a promising young career. When this happened, he was probably only 23 or 24 years old, if that. He's having a good season. He had a chance to make so much money for him and his family, have a really successful life, a successful career. And he threw it all away because he had to be for one stupid decision. This goes to show you how one dumb decision can define your whole life. And now he's going to be in prison for at least 3 years. When he gets out, he won't be, he'll probably in his 30s or his 30s or something like that. But still, now he's never playing the NFL again. He's going to have a hard time finding a job for one decision. That goes to show you how precious life really is. Only other things I got for you guys is the captain of the World Cup team for the European team is Luke Donald. He named Rory McIlroy and John Rahm, who are, I think, the second and third best players in the world right now, as the first 2 guys to his team. Not surprised there. The World Cup will be September 29th to October 1st. Only other announcements I have is this one was a bit of a surprise. Apparently, Richard Sherman is going to join Skip Bayless as his new partner on Undisputed. Shannon Sharp's longtime partner. He just left FS1 and that show and the entire network in general because of tension with Skip Bayless. Obviously, very well documented. Interesting choice, Richard Sherman. He already is he's one of the hosts for the pregame, postgame stuff for Amazon for Thursday Night Football. He's still going to do that. Of course, Richard Sherman is very famous. Years ago, for when Skip Bayless was still co-hosting First Take with Stephen A. Smith, it was during the offseason. They had Richard Sherman on. I think this was in between his second and third season in the NFL. And it was very, very tempting. Richard Sherman claimed that he was better at life than Skip Bayless, and it was very, very, very tense interview. It was very, very famous. Skip actually opened up about for the first time ever on his new podcast, Skip Bayless show, kind of recently. You guys should go watch that video if you haven't already. Apparently, he's going to do 50 to 100 shows a year, mostly during the football season. Haven't made a start date, but that'll be interesting to see how those two can get along. And I'm doing an NFL preview somewhat soon. I'm shooting for Monday the 28th. It was 3 weeks actually it's 3 weeks from 2 days ago, so about 19 days from now, to be exact. So that's what I'm shooting for. That could change, but that's what I'm shooting for. I want to have the studio for that, and I'll have the studio by then. So that could change, but it'll definitely be before the regular season starts. The first NFL game, regular season, I believe, is September 7th. Chiefs Lions starts in that football. Pretty close-ish to that date, and most likely it won't be to at least the 25th. That's when I go back to school. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.